Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here, and welcome to the Stellar Woman magazine and the Stellar Woman Show, the show that brings you thriving women's stories, knowledge, and experiences so that you too can tap into one or two things, be inspired, make a change, and thrive in your life. We know that knowledge is power, of course, if acted upon, and we're here to move knowledge from one woman to another so that we can change perspectives, bring about new possibilities, and enable more women to tap into their potential and thrive. We change one woman at a time. And with this, we know that we shall be making the world a better and a brighter world. We all agree women have the power to make a change. So welcome, my name is Stella Olivia Kikoyo, and I am the editor-in-chief of the Stellar Woman magazine and the host of this show. Today, we are excited and thrilled to have an amazing Gina Balarin. Gina has a lot of things. She's a stellar woman, as you're going to find out. And we're going to dwell a lot in the things that she does. She's a B2B communication expert, a board member of the Chartered Institute of Marketing. She's a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Marketing. She's a TED speaker. She's a coach. And she's also a founder of Verbalistics, is that the correct word?
Verbalistics.
Verbalistics. Oh, gosh, wow. Oh, thank you so much, Gina, for coming in and being with us today.
It is my pleasure, Stella. I admire what you're doing so much. We have the opportunity to make every woman a stellar woman. And I think this is exactly the way to remind us that we are extraordinary. And we can be extraordinary when we give ourselves permission to be so.
Oh, that's a great way to start it. So tell us, of course, we've had this introduction, but that's all we can read. You're going to tell us more. Who is Gina Balarin? Who is she? And what's your background story?
Well, if you think about it, the easy way to remember how to pronounce Gina Balarin is Gina Ballerina. And actually, when I was very little, I thought I wanted to do one of two things, either to become a ballerina or to become a professional businesswoman. And so, as it turned out, while I did study dance for many years, I turned away from the theater and traditional dance performance or performing as an actress to do professional speaking instead. And I took on a career as a marketer, which meant that I wasn't necessarily Gina Ballerina. But lo and behold, I managed to find and fall in love with my best friend and partner, whose surname is Balarin. And so in the end, I did in fact become both a professional businesswoman and a ballerina.
That's amazing. Amazing, amazing. And where did you grow up?
I grew up in South Africa, actually in the latter days of apartheid. So I hadn't realized at the time how much my resistance to simply being told what to do actually came from living in a regime where things were changing significantly and where we were told to behave in racist ways that were just not sensible. And so I realized later in life that actually there was no reason to behave that way. And therefore, I didn't like being told what to do when the things that people told me to do didn't make any sense. So it was logical for me to ultimately go and work for myself. My family members, both my parents were entrepreneurs. And so eventually I found that the best way to make things happen, to make change happen, was to be in a place where I didn't have to play politics, but I could actually do moments of extraordinary things for people in interesting places all over the world.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing. So much tapping into your own power, because sometimes we feel like our hands are tied, but they're not exactly tied. But you are able to tap into that power to decide for yourself and how you wanted to play in the world. That's amazing. That's strength. That's really inner strength. Thank you.
You know, I hadn't thought about it that way, but I love the way you articulate that. that inner strength is actually the ability to make change happen and to make your own mind up about what you want to do. And I think that's such a strong message for your audience. Often, powerful women choose to hide their light because they don't want other people to feel diminished. And exactly the opposite is true. When we decide that we want to take control of our lives and our destinies, we can shine so much more. And as the Marianne Williamson quote says, it is as we give ourselves permission, we automatically give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others.
It is so perfectly said, perfectly said. I think I'd read a lot of my time looking for other people to confirm what I needed to do before I could do it. Yeah, it takes you a while to actually understand that actually it's within you to make the decisions. And as long as you're centered and it's the truth and it's just good for everyone, there's nothing wrong with you taking that decision. That's powerful. Thank you. Now, you've told us a bit about your childhood. Was that your dream career, that is being a ballerina? Yeah. When did you drop this? Did you took it up because of the name, but are you continuing with the dancing?
I have done less dancing as the years have progressed, partly due to injury, partly due to circumstances, partly because, quite frankly, ballet is often a young girl's game, not an older lady's game, and partly because I think one has a self-image that you have an ideal version of yourself in your head. Yeah. And what happens over time is that our bodies change, and we digress from the ideal version that we have of ourselves. And I don't want to be, standing at a bar doing first and second and, bar exercises when I have to wear a leotard and tights. I'm not the same shape as I was 20 years ago. So I do less dancing, but, I miss it. And I found not too long ago, while trying to get back into a good exercise regime, that I did, in fact, start doing some online ballet exercises. And the funny thing was that my body remembered how to do it. And because I spent so much of my childhood and teenagehood doing it, it was all of a sudden like my body said, well, that's the shape you want to be. Let's make that happen. So it was really lovely. Even though I don't dance on stage these days, I still really enjoy just doing pliés at a bar.
I do love ballet. I do love ballet. I didn't do it as a child, but I actually tried it as an adult. I do lessons, yes, as an adult. I didn't do it as a child, but it was something that I always just love ballerinas. My daughter does ballet. And I just keep saying, my goodness, just keep doing that. I just love it.
Good for you. I think I need to find an adult ballet class. You have inspired me to get back at the bar, back into those shoes. Thank you, Stella. That's a good takeaway to take.
Exactly. I found out one. I looked for one for years, and then there was one actually closer to me than I knew. And it's a very small class because very few people dare themselves to go into something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, it requires bravery, definitely, to actually be comfortable enough to be around people learning a new skill or wearing clothes that make you feel exposed. But there's a reason that ballerinas wear the clothes that they wear. It's to be able to see how your body moves. And that's an important part. And I think doing ballet, you learn that confidence and gather that clarity and learn more about how you hold yourself, your position in space. I think it's a very beautiful activity.
Yeah, I like the fact that I take it to be like maths to me. It makes me really focus. Maybe because I'm just learning it, I just pay extra attention to all my the instructions I get. Focus on that. Thank you. So as an aspiring woman, what are your ideal stellar woman attributes?
What are the ideal attributes of a woman, would you say?
Your own stellar woman. What does she do? Yeah.
Sorry to ask this question again, but are you saying that what is the the quintessential stellar woman? What makes a woman stellar?
Yes, but your own, yes, because that's someone that you're aspiring, you're working towards all the time, because I think we're always getting there and then we are creating in your ideal, and we're still growing towards her, the identity, the ones we're trying to identify with?
That's a really tricky question to answer. A lot of people have someone in mind who they would like to be or who they aspire to become.
Mm-hmm.
That's never been the case for me, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I found at a very early age, as a child, actually, we were singing a song at school. I believe the children are the future. And there was a line in there that kind of hammered it home for me, which was, everybody's searching for a hero. People need someone to look up to. I never found anyone who fulfilled my need. A lonely place to be until I learned to depend on me. Mm-hmm. And for me, that was almost the anthem. I realized growing up in the 80s in South Africa, there wasn't an ideal woman. Women weren't in positions of strength and power and authority and glory and fabulousness. Mm. So I had to learn to depend on me, but that doesn't mean that there aren't women out there who are amazing. The problem is that they say you should never meet your own heroes. And partly that is because we are human. And you can have an ideal woman in your mind and you meet her and you're disappointed because she's not this vision of perfection. And that's, I think, the myth that we need to bust.
Yes.
That there is no such thing as perfection in any context, because we are all imperfect versions of ourselves walking towards something greater. What is the stellar woman exemplar of me? If I were to be the best version of myself,
that's the question, actually. Yeah.
I think if I were to be the best version of myself, I would be brave all the time.
Yeah.
I would do things that scared me, and I would charge what I'm worth all the time without fear.
That's a good one.
And I think I would treat myself the way that I would treat my best friend, with constant love and admiration and respect. I think the stellar version of me is someone who is much kinder to myself.
That's it. That's it. We capture that and we take it all in. Yes, being kind to yourself, and yes, being brave. But we want that, women. We just want that. That fires us. It's not something that you can't be. It's something that you can actually be. You can be more bold. Yeah. Thank you very much. So what drew you to, you talked about what drew you to marketing. I don't know if you can go deeper or beyond what you said at the beginning, and communications.
But I was in marketing before I realized I was in marketing. I've always been drawn to storytelling. Even as a very young child, there were stories of me sitting in my room playing with my dolls and my mum hearing crying and screaming from the room next door, and she ran in and said, "Are you okay?" I looked at her with this strange look. "What are you talking about?" She said, "You were crying." I said, "No, that was my dolls." Storytelling was always part of my blood. And I inherited the gift from both of my parents, really. My mom was a written storyteller. My father was a visual storyteller. He was a photographer. But what happened as part of that journey is that I started doing things that marketers do. Creating courses, writing press releases, building emails, building websites. I didn't know it was marketing. Oh. And I did a TEDx talk a few years ago on the subject of marketing in the era of authenticity. And in it, I talk about the fact that once I found marketing, I realized that it has the ability to inspire people. Now, the problem is that bad marketing inspires people to buy stuff that they don't need or don't want, that creates worse scenarios in the world. That's not the kind of marketing that I want to be involved in and that I have been involved in. There is now a striving ambition for marketers to do the right marketing, to meet environmental sustainability and governance goals. And marketing, I think, is a much more authentic context than it ever was before. I think we have far less room for manipulation because people hold us to account, which is good. It's as it should be.
Yes.
But what really made me realize that marketing was worth pursuing is the combination of the ability to tell stories and the ability to get inside people's heads and their hearts, and to realize that if you've got a customer who has the problems that you can solve, all you need to do is explain to them how you help them solve those problems. And then you create this type of communication that means they come to you naturally. And that's when marketing is done right, because then it allows people to communicate at a deeper level without having to necessarily have a face-to-face conversation even. That's what good marketing should do. It should help people solve their problems.
Solve the problems. Thank you very much. And I think that's the purpose of marketing. Satisfying those customer needs, of course, bringing back value to the customer and into the organization or to you, the seller. So as a board member of the Chartered Institute of Marketing, please share with us how you got there and to inspire others and what you do. What do you actually do as a board member? You would summarize that. I'm sure you do a lot of things, right? Just tell so that other people can say, that's what I want, exactly.
So being on a board is both a big responsibility and not a big responsibility. It depends entirely on the board that you sit on. As a non-executive director, it means that you are separate from the executive. In other words, the day-to-day decision-making should be made by the people who are responsible for it, the CEO and the people who report into the CEO. The board that I sit on with the Chartered Institute of Marketing is more of an advisory role. So we meet and we look at the plans and the strategies that our organization is creating. We look at the budget. Certain decisions are taken to the board to ratify or to disagree with. But what happens on a board is that actually really it's just a group of people who've got a fair amount of experience and a strategic way of seeing the world, who get together and help ask the right questions. And that is effectively their role, is to be outside of the day-to-day. We think often that we get bogged down in the weeds in business, no matter how big or small your business is. It's the nature of business. And that often means that you can't see the bigger strategy, you can't see the bigger picture. And so the role of boards is not only to bring individual expertise. So I sit on the CIM board as a marketer, as a content marketer, as a writer, as a creator, as an advisor. But there are others who can bring their financial expertise. There are others who bring their governance expertise. There are others who bring their academic expertise. We all come together to be able to bring different sets of experience and to help people see the world in a different way through the lens of and the benefit of our experience. Now, how did I get there? I got onto the CIM board by applying for the role, as you would for any other job. Only with the CIM, you have to be elected. So you have to be a member of the Chartered Institute of Marketing. You submit your application and you hope that there are enough other chartered marketers around the world who like what you have to say and who therefore vote for you. And this is the lesson to your audience here. I nearly didn't apply. I was so scared of applying. I thought there was no chance that I was going to get this. And so I nearly did what I often do, and what I suspect a lot of women do, is if you don't think you can get it, you just don't even bother trying in the first place.
Yes.
But I did.
Oh.
I bothered applying to the CIM. I bothered putting out messages on LinkedIn saying, hey, I've applied. I bothered reaching out to the chartered marketers who I knew. And I said, hey, would you support me in this? Can you help me? And I did it mostly because I thought it would be good experience to see and to learn from that. And then I got in. And I was elected as one of the 2 international representatives on the CIM board. And it was not easy. It's still not easy. I sit on board meetings that end at 1:30 in the morning sometimes, because I'm based in Australia and the CIM is based in the UK.
Yes.
But it's worth it. And it's mostly worth it to see how things work behind the scenes. And in a way, I wish that all people could sit on a board, or not sit on a board, maybe just observe a board meeting. Because although there's a lot of confidential stuff, there's actually a lot of stuff that is just about human dynamics. Mm-hmm. And boards are not something special or extraordinary, because almost anyone can bring that extra value. And the lesson I would share with people who have to deal with boards is just remember that their job is to delve into things, to ask uncomfortable questions, to find interesting or different answers. So if you are reporting into a board or you're creating content that is required for board meetings, make it as simple as you possibly can, and be aware that you will never answer all of the questions. But the job of the board is to ask the questions that you don't answer. So it's okay. It's okay to produce stuff that the board comes back with and says, go away and think about this some more.
Amazing. Thank you very much. That was really quite empowering, especially the bit of course, now we know more about what the board is and the Chartered Institute of Marketing, but we also know that you almost did not apply for it. That's quite inspiring. And wow, definitely a number of us should think about that, should put ourselves out, take it on. Yes. Wow. That's really great. Thank you. Thank you very much. So you're also a chartered marketer. Yeah. And for many people, they don't understand what that is about and why it is important to get a chartered marketer status.
So in the United Kingdom, you can become a chartered member of many things. You can become a chartered accountant. You can get your CIPD, which is the Chartered Institute of Professional Development. Most HR people aspire and understand CIPD. But chartered marketer is one of those strange things that most people don't recognize. The charter is something that is given by the royalty. So it's a charter from the king or queen to say, we give you the charter to say you are allowed to be this governing body. Mm-hmm. And so while there are chartered accountants, they are required to do the things that their charter tells them to do. Now, everyone knows about chartered accountants all over the world, but people don't necessarily recognize that being a chartered marketer has the same responsibility. It has the same educational requirements. It has the same continuing professional development requirements in a different context, of course. Now, if you want to be a chartered marketer, you've got to go through the steps. You got to get the education. You got to keep up with your education and training every year. You've got to make sure that you have met all of the requirements to become a chartered marketer. It's not something you can do in a day. It takes at least 3 years and sometimes longer to be able to do that. But why do it? Because it is a seal of approval. It is a stamp to say that as a chartered marketer, I know and understand marketing. It's not just theory. It's not just practice. It is a combination of the two. Now, I had studied to master's degree level before I did a professional diploma with the CIM. And the CIM's diploma was both harder and far more valuable than all of the academic training I'd had before that. And it was well worth doing. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you should only study with the Chartered Institute of Marketing. You can study anywhere you want, but go through the chartered process to become the chartered member. And with any organization, you get levels. So you start as an associate member, then you become a full member, and then hopefully, maybe over time, you become a fellow. And so in the last few years, I've been fortunate enough to become a fellow of both the Chartered Institute of Marketing and the Australian Marketing Institute. And that's kind of a really big badge to say, hey, you don't just know what you're talking about, but you've done your time. That's quite cool. I'm quite proud of that.
Yeah, that's amazing. Congratulations. Congratulations. I went through also my postgraduate to become a chartered marketer way after, yes, my master's. And also to become a fellow of higher education. UK is also another process. Wow,
absolutely.
that you have to take. Yeah, amazing. So I hope people will be inspired to take on becoming a chartered marketer. So that stamp that you talk.
Do you think that was a good summary? I'm curious, Stella, because you'll have your own perspective on being a chartered marketer.
It's perfect. That's the reason. And I want people to hear it because their myths, their stories people tell themselves about things. So to hear someone else speak it out, is really important, and to affirm that you need to take this journey. You need, it's worth it. It's really
worth it.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that. Now we're going back to your position and as a founder of Verbalistics. Did I say it right?
You did, absolutely.
So please share with us what inspired you to start this venture and what your organization does and what's your experience so far.
Verbalistics is a combination of two words, verbal and ballistic. And if you think about it, the whole purpose of something where you smash words together to make things go ballistic is to be able to identify words and their meaning, and to use that inspiration to create effective communication that enables change.
Wow.
What does Verbalistics do? It is a B2B marketing communications organization that helps understand what are the real problems you're facing in marketing and how do you solve those? And it joins the dots between the two, but it joins the dots through the medium of communication. Now, marketing is an incredibly diverse and complex discipline. You can be a marketer if you're an expert in search engine optimization. You can be a marketer if you do nothing but send emails. But if you're a diverse marketer who has had the background and the experience and understand the whole process of how do you start with a plan and actually execute that plan, and what is all the stuff that goes on in the middle, you realize that underpinning every element of that is the ability to communicate clearly, effectively, and with your audience in mind. So Verbalistics helps people make their words go mental by finding what it is that inspires them and their customers, and by connecting the dots between the problems and the solutions. It's as simple as that.
Simple as that. Yes, connecting the dots using communication. It's communication across. And I think communication, we might use it loosely, but in every aspect of life, just not only business, but in everything. We're just,
absolutely.
Yes, we need to just become very good at communicating and understanding all those bits that most likely you do in terms of how to communicate effectively. Yeah.
You asked how Verbalistics started. It
Yes.
actually started out of adversity. I have been made redundant 3 times in my life. And the first time it was a shock to the system. I literally felt like I was superfluous to requirements. That's the definition of the word. You are redundant. You're useless, right? And it was hard to come back from that. And the second time I was made redundant, I saw the writing on the wall and I already had another job by the time they made me redundant. Yeah. And the third time redundancy came up, I was ready for it. In fact, I volunteered for it because I realized that I'd made all of the change that I could make happen in that organization, and it was time for me to move on because I couldn't help them any further. And that is when I decided to go out on my own and start Verbalistics. And Verbalistics became a place for me to create the ideas that you have as an entrepreneur that you often can't find a way to bring home in a large organization. And this is the challenge. A lot of people have that spirit, they have that ambition, they can see the changes that they need to make, but they're somehow stifled by the nature of the companies that they work in. And I do a lot of coaching. In fact, I'm mentoring a bunch of marketers at the moment. And one piece of advice I gave to someone today was the people who get promoted are those who act in the organization's best interests, not necessarily by doing what they're told to do. And one of the women who has inspired me got many promotions during the time that I was working in the same company as her, because she had a mantra that was, it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. And I've seen it happen so often with people I'm coaching that when they become brave enough to do the right thing, the thing that really makes a difference, they actually get promoted. It's quite strange. They stop playing by the rules, they do what's right for the business, and as a result, they make a bigger difference. But it is that fear factor. If we are too afraid to do what we know is the right thing to do, then everyone just ends up meeting their KPIs or not meeting their KPIs. We end up dotting the I's and crossing the T's rather than finding where the dots are that we need to connect. We end up doing what we're told rather than doing what's right for the business, for your customers, for your employees. And I think that Verbalistics was a way for me to help people make a difference without having to feel stifled by larger organizations or arbitrary rules.
Definitely, that's very good. Thank you very much by how you've explained it, because I think it also kills creativity when you have something in you that you think can work, but it's not fitting in a way things have been framed within the organization. And really the best way to do is actually get out and be able to be creative, unless you have an organization that can allow you to be creative. Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Now you've worked for clients, really big clients here, like DXS Technology, SAP, Concur. You've worked with Mesa, is it Mesa, Tetra Pak, and more organization. What's the main service that you offer this organization? Oh, you've talked about that. But how have you been able to win these business contracts? Because many times someone won't even, like you did your board application. Many times we think, I can't get that, so forget it. And you go and play small all the time.
A lot of times it's not about what you do, but it's about who you know. We all know that the power of networking is exponential. And if you think about it from a social media perspective, you know that you've got a certain number of connections on LinkedIn. They're your first degree connections. But the power is not in the first degree connections, it's in the second or the third. You might have played the game 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. The idea is you get a star from a TV show or a film, and you try how many connections do you have to make to get back to Kevin Bacon. And the idea is that if you have the right connections, you can almost always find a way of getting back to Kevin Bacon. By the way, it's just a pun on the 6 degrees of separation. And the logic there is that everyone is intimately connected, but we often don't leverage the power of those connections. And I think, I can't say this for all women, but I can say that certainly this has been my experience, and I do observe it in people in my network. We are very afraid of reaching out to people who are bigger or better than us, who punch above their weight, who are stellar. And that's exactly the wrong attitude to have. I have found in the last few years, when I've been brave enough to ask for help, that if you ask with humility and respect, and you give people a good reason for why you want to speak to them, and you respect their time, there's almost no one who won't give you the time of day, particularly women, and particularly strong women, and particularly women who have been through those challenges. And this is the power of networking. If you are connected to someone powerful and you're brave enough to say, hey, I've got this problem, can you help me? It's almost amazing what you can learn and how you can grow from those connections. And I think if there's a message I can leave your audience with, it is, please reach out to the person who you're most afraid of. But rather than just reaching out to one, make a list of 10 or 20 women you're inspired by, and make a special concerted effort to tell them why you'd like to have a conversation with them. Make it easy for them to have that conversation with them, and you will be amazed by how many people will come back to you. Not everyone, obviously, but enough people that you might be able to see the world in a different way.
That's very good. That's very good. That's inspiring, especially making those connections, leveraging that network. You've really given me homework there. Homework.
I don't actually know if I answered your question. Your question was, how
No,
do you
you
get
did.
those clients?
Yes.
The answer is really, you get the clients through the connections that you make. And also by asking. I learned a very important lesson earlier this year, which was, when you are in dire straits, when things are tough, the only way you can get through it is by humbly telling people that you need that help. And so here's another lesson. It's, no one will help you unless they know you need help. The bravest thing you can ever do is to say, I need help.
Yes. That's very good. That's really good. That's something that we have to take away, really ask for help. Ask. I need help here. Very good. We have to really be brave enough to ask for help. So what are the key lessons you could share from a marketing perspective that small and medium businesses need to get out of your working with big corporations to enable them to succeed and grow, but mainly from a marketing perspective?
I think the most important lesson to help small businesses do their marketing better is not to try and be all things to all people. Be very, very clear on what you do well and who you serve, and really target those people. There is a fellow who works for HubSpot, the marketing, well, they're not the marketing agency, they're marketing platform.
Yeah.
He was the 6th employee in HubSpot, and he's still working there in an advisory capacity. His name is Dan Wiley, I want to say. Dan, I can't remember his name, Dan something. And he says the riches are in the niches. Now, forgive me, because in English, of course, we say niche, that's an American version of that phrase, but it rhymes, so it's easy to remember. So the lesson for people who are running small businesses is find your niche and then plaster that all over everything. And make sure that you're reaching out to people who really have the need that you're trying to solve. Now, the problem is that often small businesses think that they want to do everything and that they can do everything. Yes, they can. There's no question about that. They can do a lot, because I think small businesses have to be far more diverse in their approach and their experience than larger businesses are. But the lesson that we take from larger businesses is that age-old marketing adage STP, which is segmentation, targeting, and positioning, requires you to segment. You can't tell me that every big business is going to go after every single other big business simply because they're big businesses. Well, they can, but they won't really succeed. And one of the principles with account-based marketing is that you're marketing to an account. And I think that more small businesses would be better and better at their own marketing if they were very clear about who they were helping. And then the flip side of that is shout about it. When you've done great marketing or whatever, when you've provided a great service or sold a great product, get customers to talk about it. Customer testimonials are one of the most powerful forms of marketing for various reasons, but the biggest reason, in my opinion, is because you build trust. People trust you, it's credible, it's authoritative, and if you're asking customers who are happy with you, they can actually sense the love, the respect, the pride that customers get out of having their problems solved by you. I know it's hard to justify the investment in marketing storytelling and marketing customers and case studies and videos and testimonials, but they might not necessarily pay dividends. What they do is they speed up the sales cycle significantly. And that trust factor is something that cannot be underestimated in marketing. So small businesses, the riches are in the niches, and do customer marketing in the sense of getting customer testimonials. And once you've got those customer testimonials, put them everywhere, put them in your email footers, put them on your website, put them in your social media, put them on your YouTube channel, put them in TikTok. Just make sure that your prospective customers are seeing and sharing the delight of your existing customers.
Fantastic. I think that was a marketing classroom in session. That was a marketing classroom really going on there. Thank you very much. The riches are in the niches. Wow. I love that. And I think it's something that definitely, if you're small and medium, you need to really focus on that bit. Get those niches, the segmentation. Yeah, putting time and energy on that. Yeah. Fantastic. And shouting about your wins. That's your marketing really, that's your ammunition that you have there. The moment you've done win, you've made brought about the customer delight, then making sure that you tell the world about that exact experience. Thank you. So tell
There's
us
something
about,
else before we ask the next question. There's something else I want to add about the power of customer testimonials.
yeah.
If we are actually disciplined enough to ask for customer feedback regularly, it becomes far less scary to ask for it in future. And what also happens if we ask for feedback is that we start collecting evidence. So I say, get those customer stories and share them. But what happens is over time, you get more and more and more customer evidence if you ask for it. Are you sensing a theme here? The fact that asking for things is actually good, that doing things that scare you is actually good. It's the same in life as it is in marketing. And actually, once one starts collecting that evidence, it becomes so much easier to convince yourself that you're worth it too.
Okay, you've helped us actually to drift from business and bring all those things in life as well. And that's what we want to do for people, for women to become stellar women, to actually get all these experiences and move them across, because many things that you've talked about here, the connections, they work for business as they work for your personal life. So yeah, the asking, be bold. The business needs to be bold as well. So all of these things, wow, thank you. Thank you very much. I hope people will be able to take something out of that, as I have. So let's go to your book, The Secret Army book. Oh, wow. Oh, congratulations on that. When did it come out?
Oh, it's quite old now. It's about 6 or 7 years old. But here's the interesting thing about The Secret Army. And it's the interesting thing about being someone who observed trends before they become trends. The lessons that are in The Secret Army, I am now starting to see being part of more and more books that people are talking about. It's a bit of a curse. I know this, and I don't say this to sound boastful, but it's been an observation that's been quite frustrating for me. I've spoken at many B2B business events over the years, and I'll always submit a topic that they'll usually accept. And the year that I present, there'll be a few people in the audience and they'll enjoy it. And we'll get to the end of the event and, we move on to the next thing. And then the next year or 2 years after that, the topic that I was talking about, someone else will be standing on the stage and the room will be packed, standing room only. And so part of the problem with being a bit of a thought leader is that I get the ideas before anyone else is ready to hear them. And a similar thing happened with The Secret Army, leadership marketing and the power of people. It came out of an experience of being in organizations where I was just so frustrated with people doing really daft things that I thought, come on, people, let's get this right. It's not about dictating what you have to do. It's actually about finding what makes people come alive and giving them the opportunity within a business context to do that. It seems like such a no-brainer to me. And now HR is starting to come around to that. And now I think organizations are realizing the value of their people, but more importantly, they are realizing that if you give people the opportunity to thrive and to be more, they become more.
I like those words, to thrive and to be more. Yes, they become more. Yes. And that's our drive as well here, is to allow ourselves to be more. Yes, to be more, to thrive. Amazing. Thank you very much for that. So you're a non-executive director for Project Displaced. Please share with us what the project is about and what you do. Yes.
So I sit on the board of Project Displaced as well. And this was an interesting experience because I saw them in the news right at the beginning of COVID. And they were helping people who were out of work get back into work. And so I reached out to the CEO of the company, Anthony Cohen, and I said, how can I help? I see that you're looking for coaches. I see that you're looking for people who can help counsel people who are in HR. I'm not in HR, I'm in marketing, but what can I do? I want to support this initiative. And he said to me, would you like to be on a board? I said, yes, absolutely, I would. And this was another interesting experience, I think, that is an important lesson in bravery. If you shouldn't just ask the uncomfortable questions, but also realize that sometimes opportunities can come from incredibly surprising sources. I had it in my mind that I wanted to be on a board. I just applied for the CIM role and thought there was no chance that I would get it. But
Yes.
because I was determined to be on a board, when this opportunity came up, it was like a no-brainer. And so instead of being on no boards at all, or being on one board, I actually ended up being on 2 boards.
Yeah, amazing.
Now, what Project Displaced does is it is an Australian-based organization where expert coaches, counselors, trainers, people who will charge several $100s a session, volunteer their time for free. And the organization exists to help connect people who want to change careers, who are out of work, who need to get back into work, who are just frustrated with the nature of what they're doing, who need help with their CVs or emotional support during the job seeking process. And it puts the 2 of them together, those who need help and those who provide that help and guidance just out of the goodness of their heart.
Yeah. Oh, that's very good. Great work.
It's a challenge though, because we have the problem with Project Displaced that people don't ask for help. And people think, well, someone else needs this more than I do. And the lesson here is it doesn't matter how wealthy you are, how much experience you've had, how you can look and see that there are people who are worse off than you. It doesn't matter. You deserve that help.
You deserve the help. Yes. And ask, go on and ask. Look at that, experts available, and you could be in a corner, just frustrated with life, yet there's a service that's available. I hope people can be able to tap into that. I don't know if we have yet Australian audience, but that's really important. Ask for help and seek help. And most likely there must be a Project Displaced here in the UK as well, and other parts of the world where people can actually benefit and utilize this expert knowledge that is available. Yeah. Thank you. So we're interviewing you for our issue 9, which is striving for excellence. We want to know, what does striving for excellence mean to you?
Striving for excellence means aiming to achieve the best, working towards the best, and knowing that excellence is not the same as perfection. Perfection is impossible. Excellence is always possible. But as someone who recognizes that I have not always acknowledged the excellence I have achieved, it's important to realize that excellence differs for every person. Someone who is challenged in a way that means that they can't do the same thing as everyone else is excellent when they do that thing. Someone who is extraordinary in all sorts of ways might achieve excellence when they do something they really, really wanted to achieve and they set their heart and soul in it and they finally accomplished it. But the warning I will give people about striving for excellence, particularly women who are hard on themselves, is that when you do achieve excellence, for goodness sake, please give yourself permission to celebrate that excellence, to celebrate that achievement. A lot of women have imposter syndrome. Now, imposter syndrome is fairly evenly spread across the world, but women manifest it slightly differently. And what it means is that we see ourselves as never good enough. We believe that no matter what we do, we're faking it. We are imposters. And the message here is, if you think you're an imposter, you kind of go, yeah, of course, I've done that. No, yeah, but it's not good enough. I need to do this next thing and this next thing and this next thing and this next thing. If we can actually take the time to recognize something that is excellent, I think, and really bring that into our heart and soul and go, oh my God, I did that and it was excellent. Wow, look at that. It changes our perspectives of ourselves. Often women are hard on themselves and there's a nasty negative person in their head. And one of the ways of getting rid of that nasty person in your head is to treat yourself like you would treat your best friend, with kindness, with comfort. One of the other elements you can do with that is to celebrate the excellence in yourself. And sometimes we need a little bit of help, and sometimes we need a support network who we trust enough to actually say, congratulations, you were excellent. And to actually just bask in that excellence and feel like, wow, this is it. I did this. I made this happen. I am excellent. Yeah.
Like that last bit, I think that's what we don't do.
I lived in the UK for 13 years. And during that time, I tried to squash myself into a little box because I didn't want to be someone who stood out, who ruffled feathers. And it was only when I stepped into an organization that was my work home did I realize that I could be who I was truly meant to be. And I think there is a risk that often being seen as excellent means, or recognizing your excellence is associated with arrogance.
Yes.
And it's not okay in the UK to be arrogant, is it? Pride is a sin.
Yeah.
But what I can say is that actually celebrating stuff that we've accomplished, it's not something that we should be ashamed of. It is something that we should be prepared to explore and enjoy. And I think a lot of women would be a lot better off if they didn't just shrug their excellence out of the way, if they didn't just brush it off and move on to the next thing, but actually celebrated themselves as much as their best and brightest and most amazing friend would celebrate them. And so maybe this is the challenge to leave to your listeners. It is, don't just celebrate someone else's excellence, celebrate your own, but more importantly, surround yourself with a group of people who want to share in that excellence. And if there's one thing you can do for a friend, is when they have achieved something, force them to celebrate.
Yes. That's very true. Yes. Force them to celebrate. Indeed. Indeed. That's a good one. I've reflected with a friend that I promised that she got a promotion, and I told her once she confirms that we need to celebrate, but I hadn't got back to her. So there you are. You've given me a task to do. A task today. Today I have to send a message. That's a good one. Thank you very much. We need to celebrate. We need to affirm that excellence that we have achieved. And thank you for helping us distinguish excellence from perfection. Thank you. So what obstacles do you see that stand in a way of achieving excellence in your organization?
Often there is a difference between what is excellent and what is good enough. I had a realization when I started consulting, which was that my definition of excellent was not the same as my client's definition of excellence. And I found this reflection through other people who've written content in the past, which is that I would work on something and then work on it and work on it and work on it until it was exactly how I wanted it to be. And the problem with that is that often if we do that, we only allow it to reflect ourselves and our opinions and our research and our input. And actually, what happens as a consequence is that we don't allow other people to get involved. And almost by accident, I discovered that when I sent something to a client that I thought was only 75% good enough, they liked it more than something that I submitted that was 95% good enough.
Okay.
And I think this lesson can be applied to any perfectionist anywhere in the world. Good is better than perfect. By which I mean done is better than perfect. Get it done and let it go and move on. This is a very important lesson for any content writer or anyone who's involved in creativity. We tend to hold on to our babies and we're so scared that someone is going to judge them and find them wanting that we kind of niggle and niggle and niggle. And what happens is that there's a tipping point. At one point you have good, at another point you have excellent, and then at a third point you actually have less than excellent because you've spent so much time reworking it that it can actually become less great. The tip for excellence in anyone that I work with or collaborate with is get it done by the deadline, get it done to the best of your ability, and then let it go. You don't have control over an item once you've passed it on to someone else, whether that is a project plan or a piece of writing that you've created or a marketing strategy. You co-create with people. You create a product that is better because many people worked on it together. But at the end of the day, you can't determine what a client wants. And you can't always read their mind. And if you are so emotionally attached to the work that you create, anyone who changes it, it'll feel like they're kind of gouging out a piece of your soul.
Yeah.
That's not what they're doing. What they're trying to do is they're trying to add a piece of theirs.
Definitely, to make it unique. Yeah. Oh, actually better, more appealable. Yeah. Yeah, that's very good. Especially in anything creative. It requires different pieces, different ideas, different perspectives to come into it. Yeah. Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you for that as well. So how do you go about improving excellence in your business and in your profession?
I think in the marketing profession, being a chartered marketer is an element towards excellence. Marketing has a bad reputation, this we know. The reason I didn't want to be a marketer in the first place was because marketing is synonymous with advertising. A lot of people see adverts, they see the fact of simply driving spend, of making people want stuff that they don't need. Marketing is not the same as advertising. Advertising is a tool that marketers can, but do not have to always use. So driving excellence in a field is about recognizing the professionalism of your field and getting appropriate qualifications and holding yourself responsible and accountable. Chartered marketers actually have responsibilities to their clients. And this is something that I think any truly professional person will do, is that they will know that you can't just do something and shove it out there and expect people to pay you for it and not be proud of the results. Oh, you can, but what does that achieve? I think that I use the word pride a lot, and proud. And it's interesting because if you look at the 7 deadly sins, pride is one of the 7 deadly sins. And yet I actually think that if we flip that on its head, pride should not be a sin. It should be a requirement. If you are not proud of the things that you have accomplished, why have you done them in the first place? If you are not striving for excellence, and by that I mean if you're not striving for something that you would be happy to show to the person who matters to you. In my case, it's my mom. If I've created something that I'm really excited about, I want to tell her about it. If you haven't done that, then you won't have reached your own goals, never mind your organization's goals or your employees' goals. Even if you can't make yourself proud of every single thing that you do, try to find something that you can be proud of.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. You're bringing all of those things that really affirm back to really owning your progress and taking a sense of pride. And it's very good that you bring it to the perspective that although it's seen in a different way, it's actually not right to see it as a sin. It's actually something that you need to have within yourself. And growing up, you're conditioned not to be proud of certain things, not to say out loud that you've done something. But of course, that doesn't work in our favor to progress in life at all. It doesn't. It doesn't at all. It doesn't build your strength. It doesn't build you up. Yeah, you remain. I think that's why we have that imposter. We remain feeling that we are inadequate. And yet we are making progress. We are achieving things. But because you don't take time to feel the sense of goodness, whatness, the pride that you've achieved it, it still takes away something from you. You've done it, but then you haven't acknowledged that you've done it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think there's a big difference between pride and arrogance.
Yes.
And I think the problem is that people think that they're the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
It is possible to be proud of a piece of work. It is possible to share that work with pride and not brag about it. It's something I struggle with. No, actually, it's not something I struggle with. It's something I think very deeply about. Before I put a post on LinkedIn, I think, what is the real message that I want to convey to people?
Yeah.
I don't just want to tell them that I'm great. I want to leave them with something that helps them, something that inspires them, something that they can take away or acknowledge or connect with in some way, shape, or form. And I think maybe that's the difference between pride and hubris, or pride and arrogance. It's perfectly possible to be proud and to show pride and to demonstrate pride without actually boasting to people and go, look at me, I'm so great.
Definitely. And this what you're telling us goes back to your work, verbalistics. Why you do what you do, you're really trying to assure us with the context of words and bringing more meaning to those words or the messages that you're putting out for even your customers and your audience, whoever they are. Thank you. Thank you for that. So I know that this question, you've answered it in a way, but I'm going to bring it on because women need this. I know you've talked about you have to start doing things that scare you early in your life. I got it from your LinkedIn and interview post, and I thought this is something we want to hold on to. What does courage mean to you? And how does one, maybe that's what I want at this point, because you've talked about being bold and all of those things, but how do we develop that? I could pick up the dots from what you've said, but I would like you to articulate that. How do we develop
There is a
that?
wonderful quote, which is that courage, like a muscle, is strengthened by use. It's hard to be brave. It's particularly hard to be brave about things that you have never done before. It's even harder to be brave about things that are so far outside of your comfort zone, you don't even have any clue as to how you're going to achieve that thing. And the reason that I mentioned that quote is that to become brave, you can start by doing small things. Now, you can think, oh, maybe I want to become a multimillionaire. And I know that I can do that, but I have to be brave. I have to set up a business plan. I have to get a loan. I have to find a mentor. I have to have a great product. Big goal, right?
Yeah.
Requires a lot of courage. But by the same token, it requires just as much courage the first time you're doing something you haven't done before. Whether that is going into a shop after COVID, you know, you feeling brave. You've got to push yourself to go into that room where there are these people after you've spent so long in your own. That is bravery, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you've had a car accident and you don't want to get into that car, and you know that that requires enormous courage. Well, if you treat it like a muscle and you strengthen it by using it, you can open the car door one day. That was brave. The next day, you can actually sit in the car seat. That was brave. The third day, maybe you turn on the ignition. That's brave. Maybe the fourth day, you put your foot on the accelerator. And then by day 12 or 20 or 500, you can finally start driving that car again. Courage, like a muscle, is strengthened by use. If you do not do the things that scare you regularly, you'll never do the big things. So I guess my takeaway here is do something every day that scares you. A few weeks ago, I committed with a mutual mentor for us to do something every single day that we were either scared of or that we were avoiding. And my goodness, was it a powerful time. We took it upon ourselves because we'd committed to each other to do those things that we naturally avoided. And it was amazing the difference that it made. So if you're afraid to do things on your own and you don't see a reason to put that courage into use, find someone else who you can do it with. Yeah. Because when you've got someone else involved in that process, you know you're not just accountable to yourself, you're accountable to them as well, and hold each other accountable.
Definitely. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Getting someone, as it scares you, if you get someone, you actually are going to be able to move. Yes, because someone is waiting for you to do something. That's a good one. Thank you. Now, let us know what does success look like to you?
In my mind, if I were truly successful, I would have enough wealth that I could purchase absolutely anything that I wanted without having to think about the cost of it. I would be on stage all over the world speaking to people. And I would live in a place where I could see over the sea and have a massage every single day of my life. But is that success or is that imagination? Well, it's both. But the irony is that when I think about the stuff that I really wanted to achieve and had goals or visions, and look back on it now and I realize I've done a lot of those things. So I wanted to be a ballerina. I'm Gina Ballerina. I wanted to be a professional businesswoman. I'm a professional businesswoman. I had a dream car. I dreamed of owning a little red Mazda sports car. And you know what? I bought and had and left behind my little MX-5 years ago. Yeah. And if I hadn't had those dreams, if success hadn't been something that I'd actually committed to achieving, I never would have done it. Yeah. So here's the takeaway. It doesn't matter what success is for you. All that matters is that you start identifying and being brave enough to commit to that success. Success may mean you finish a jumper that you started 6 years ago. Success may mean that you write that book that you've always been intending to write. But the other important thing is to remember that as you evolve, your definition of success changes. And it's also important to remember that just because you haven't achieved the success that you set for yourself as the next goal doesn't mean you're not successful. Yes. Success can be all sorts of things. Often in the coaching practices that I do, I help people identify what their definition of success is for themselves, but more importantly, where that comes from. Because what we define as success is often stipulated by society or our parents or our ancestors or our bosses or someone we met once who made us feel small. And so we wanted to prove them wrong. And so we wanted to achieve success. Yeah. It's not our definition of success. It's their definition of success. Exactly. Yeah. If you love being a mom, then your definition of success is not going to work and never seeing your kids. Your definition of success should be raising happy, healthy children who see the world in a way that is making a difference, who are individuals that can contribute somehow to life, yeah, who bring something to the planet. Exactly. Your definition of success can only be your definition of success. And you must allow yourself to identify what that definition is for you without having to necessarily subscribe to the definition that everyone else wants. Amazing. That was a coaching session. Thank you very much. Thank you, Gina. And so what is your view about failure? Because I think this is now the point. The most times people are looking for that. They're worried. They can't dare themselves. All these things that we are telling us to do is surrounded, or we default into the view that we are going to fail. So what is your view about failure? Failure is inevitable. It's quite funny because when you stop being afraid of failure when you realize that it is a very, very important part of every single element of life. Suddenly it becomes much easier to achieve. I think for me, there's a difference between little failure and big failure. And, if you are made redundant from a job, for example, is that a big failure? Yeah, it felt like it at the time, the first time it happened. But the third time I was like, bring it on. Bring me that failure so that I can move on to the next part of my life. When I wrote my first book, a romantic fiction novel, I never published it because I was too afraid that every time I sent a letter to an agent or a book publisher that they would reject me. And you know what? I got a few rejections and I told myself I'm going to set a goal of getting 100 rejection letters. But I never did because I was too afraid of the big failure. And I spent years talking about this book that I was going to get published. And yeah, I never did. And eventually my husband said to me, that's it, Gina, I love you, but I can't do this anymore. I can't keep talking about this book that you're never going to publish because you're never going to publish it. So that's it, we're done. So you know what happened?
What happened?
I wrote another one.
Okay.
And I published that one. And if I hadn't failed to actually attempt to get the fiction book published, I never would have figured out how to succeed to get this book published. Then if I hadn't failed in terms of the publicity and promotion that I know I could have and should have done better and differently when I first published this book, I wouldn't have it in my mind that the next time I write a book, I am going to put all of the marketing efforts and expertise I can into making that a massive success. So failure is inevitable. It's also important to realize that no matter how good you are, no matter how naturally talented you are, no matter how much work and effort and research you put into something, you will never be an expert at it the first time you try it. Ever. Yeah, there are child geniuses, child prodigies who may pick up a violin and play it magnificently when they're 3 years old. But that same child prodigy would not be a professional violinist in their 20s or 30s if they didn't practice every single day of their life, if they didn't make mistakes, if they didn't sound the wrong note, if they didn't drop their violin or get cross with their teacher. Failure is an inevitable part of success. I wish I'd learned that lesson sooner. I wish I had been brave enough to realize that not only is it okay to fail, but you have to fail. Failure is necessary.
Amazing. Thank you very much. And you've given us a perspective of how you failed with your first book and moved on. So that helps me answer the question that I was going to ask you, whether you failed at something and what was it. But I wanted to know, are you going to ever publish that book?
Funnily enough, in the last few days, it came up again. And when I reread the book, I actually realized it's really not that bad. It's a bit outdated now, and some of the plot lines don't quite work because it was written in a world where you don't have ubiquitous access to technology and where you don't have the internet on your phone. So, I'd have to adjust it so that actually it still works, that there's still a reason for this person to have whatever contacts and connections she has. But I think part of the reason why I've not published it is it's so silly. It's that, well, it needs updating, and that, yeah, I'm not really sure that if I put it up on the internet that anyone will buy it. But really it comes down to the fact that I just really couldn't be bothered to do those extra few steps. And if I was really that bothered, it probably wouldn't take me that long to make the edits and to review the book and to promote it. But part of the reason I don't do it is because I have this perception that The Secret Army was a failure because I didn't get tens of thousands of copies sold. It wasn't an instant bestseller. It never made it to, well, I wouldn't say it never made it to bookshops. It's been sold in bookshops in Australia. It's been sold in bookshops in the UK. Why do I still perceive it to be a failure? I perceive it to be a failure because I didn't do the optimal marketing that I knew that I could have done. If you'd asked me this question a couple of years ago, I would have said the book is a failure because the margins are too small. See there?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
margins are too small, therefore the book is a failure. Like, really? Really? We think that the book is a failure? Come on, Gina.
That's
You know, it's a failure because I forgot to put in a page at the beginning where I could sign my name. That makes it, nope. These are not real reasons for failure. The book is a failure because it's glossy instead of matte on the cover, and I want it to be matte.
Yeah.
No. These are not real reasons.
Yeah.
Failure is often not what we perceive it to be. And I think, especially if you're a perfectionist or you have any imposter syndrome, it is so easy to see these tiny little things as such a big deal. It's something that Dove does really well. I keep going back to their campaign for real beauty. And I look back again at a video that they did years ago where they had a police sketch artist come in and draw women. Yes. And you recognize the advert, you're familiar with it. I hope your audience is. I'm going to summarize it for them.
Class, but you go ahead.
What happened was the police sketch artist drew women from two perspectives. One was the definition of themselves, the way they describe themselves. And the other was a stranger who was told nothing about this other than make friends with them, get to know them, have a chat with them. And then what they did is they took these two sketches and they put them side by side, and they took the women up to look at those sketches, and they said to them, so are you more beautiful than you think? And the answer was absolutely yes, because the way the rest of the world saw them was as so much more beautiful than the way they saw themselves. And so I focus on the imperfections in my book, the fact that the margin is too small or the cover is too glossy, which, by the way, I love now. 4 years ago, I didn't. We focus on these imperfections in ourselves as a woman. Oh, my face is too zitty. My nose is too red. Really? Who cares? Is that the first thing that people notice when they talk to me? Probably not. They probably notice that I am bubbly and vivacious. They don't notice the fact that I've got a great big zit and my nose is pink.
Oh my goodness, Gina, you've just done it again. You've taken me, and I'm sure anyone who will listen to that, I'm going to have to watch that advert again, because it's transformational, changing your perspective of yourself, really. Wow. Not focusing on all those imperfections, putting energy on them. Yet there's so much beauty in you and what other people see you. And you talked about being your best friend, like being kind and all of those things. So they're coming together. It's all actually making more sense here. Wow, that was great. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. So what challenges have you faced during your journey? Do you have a particular challenge that you faced? Because you've talked about all these situations, but I'm trying to picture out, okay, you started off. Have you faced any challenges, serious challenges, maybe towards, no, you've talked about being made redundant. Those are challenges. That's not easy.
I think the biggest challenge for me was moving to the UK from South Africa. I had expectations because South Africa is an ex-colonial country. You assume that what happens in the colonies is a mimicry of what happens in the motherland, right? No, not at all. There are so many rules in England that no one talks about. In fact, I read a book about British culture where I realized why people looked at me so strangely when I was waiting for a bus and I got on the bus when it arrived. I didn't realize there was this thing called the invisible queue, that you actually don't stand in a queue. You observe who comes before you, and then you observe who comes after you, and then you get on the bus in that logical order. It wasn't a thing that occurred to me as someone who grew up in Africa. But you talked about what were the challenges. The challenge was that I felt like I had to squash myself to fit into England. I am bubbly and vivacious and over the top, and that's okay. But for a very long time, I didn't believe that I was allowed to be bubbly and vivacious. And so as a result, I kept myself in a box. I closed the lid and I let things squash me and squash me and squash me and squash me until the Gina was a fraction of the person that she really was. And I fixed that by finding a place where I was allowed to be myself. And what happened as a part of that process was I started to discover the parts of myself that I liked and the parts of myself that I didn't like so much. And by embracing the parts of myself that I did like, I was also able to reflect consciously on what was creating the unlikable bits and to start thinking about, where did that come from? Mm. And I started writing about the bits of me that I wished I'd learned earlier. Mm. And that, I think, was transformational, to be able to provide that output in a way that helped me process that information. I did it a lot with posts on LinkedIn, in fact. A lot of the posts I've written on LinkedIn, and this was long posts, this is not, short ones, this is actually like articles. Some of them made their way into the secret army. Oh. I didn't realize that was what I was writing them for at the time, but it was a really, really useful resource. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of them that still exist, which are about how to win an argument with a negative person in your head, or how to feel better about yourself, or how to just accept who you are. All of these things that I've been thinking about a lot over the years. I've written them down. You can find them if you search back through my past articles, and some of them are pretty damn good, if I say so myself. But the other thing that I do now is I process information that is just below consciousness through poetry.
Oh, okay.
And I find that if I don't plan what I'm writing, I just pick up a pencil and I scribble. It is amazing the stuff that comes out that can be really helpful. And it's not just helpful for me. I have actually shared it with people who have gone through similar challenges, and it's been transformational for them too.
Fantastic. Maybe the question I didn't ask you, who's that book for, Secret Army? Who should read that book? I think that's important. I was trying now to make a link, given the posts that you've made, and they're making their way into the book. I thought, all right, I didn't ask this question. Who should read?
The answer is, it's hard to say because it wasn't written with a target audience in mind. I think anyone who works in marketing and who has an interest in how to inspire people should read it.
Definitely.
Anyone who is thinking that maybe there's a different way to lead people, and who knows that there might be a way that you can communicate to people better, should read it. Anyone who wants to read a bunch of really inspirational stories that help them understand how to help people speak up more clearly should read it. But what I will say is that there's some people who've picked it up and they've read it from beginning to end in 2 days because they love it so much, because it speaks to them so deeply. It's not going to be like that for everyone. But you can have a look inside it if you go onto Amazon, and you can actually check it out, and you can see all the chapters and see the writing style. It's not everyone's cup of tea because it's written like I speak. It is quintessentially Gina, and you discover a whole bunch of stories connected with a whole bunch of really experts. This is not just me. I've done my homework. I've done the research. I've connected the dots between what I think and what comes from respected sources. And it's put together in a way that is effectively a manual for better leadership that inspires people to be themselves more fully in the workplace.
That's powerful. That's very good. Just being yourself in the workplace. Yes. Oh, fantastic. Thank you very much. So anyone really, not just who's in marketing, really anyone who wants to be inspired into self-leadership and also leading others, and also creating maybe a better work environment as well. That's very good. So we should actually all get the book. So get the book if you're listening to this or watching this video or reading the magazine. Get the book. So we want to know, we know that there's something about the pandemic that just happened, and it did affect people's lives and businesses. What key lessons did you take from it?
I realized I was an introvert. The pandemic was actually great for me because while you'll see me as extroverted, I give people a lot of energy when I'm interacting with them. And I realized that actually I don't get the energy from the interactions. I give it away. So being able to see people virtually and then shut down and not have to talk to people was great for me because I recovered my energy. What else did I learn from the pandemic? I think it was that finally the rest of the world could catch up to ways of working that are actually better for humans. Don't get me wrong, being in the office is beneficial for a lot of people, but it's also not necessary for a lot of people. And I'm increasingly frustrated by companies that are requiring people to go back to the office, because have we not been able to prove that remote working works and is actually better for a lot of human beings? And I think it is often extroverts who need and crave that interaction, who want people to come back into the office. And there's nothing wrong with that. We all need to get energy from the way that we want to get energy. But I think if the pandemic taught us anything, it is that there is a way of being kinder and more honest and more authentic that we should all embrace. So not from a personal perspective, but from a general perspective, I think the pandemic shifted our perspective about it's okay to not be okay. And I hope that we can retain that perspective moving forward. I think we saw into each other's lives in a different way. You know, at the office, you only see the image that people are projecting, the dresses that they wear, the suits that they put on to go to the office. You know, when you're talking to someone and you can see their cat walking across the screen in front of them, or you can get an idea of what's sitting in their background, it gives you a whole different perspective of who they are as a human being. And I hope that long after we've gone back to living a post-pandemic life, I hope that we retain that ability to know and to want to know people as individuals and as real humans, not just one view of the world that they show.
Amazing. Thank you very much. Thank you. Now, if you had to be given a magic wand to change the world, what change would you like to see?
I'd like to see more women in international government. I would love every single government to make it mandatory to have 50% of their population in governance women. In fact, 55%, in fact, 60%. I think if the world were run by more women rather than more men, we would see a massive shift in everything, really.
60% is go for. That's very good. I would agree with that. Thank you very much. Now, have you been helped by women on your way to the top? Any woman who has helped you?
It's a tricky question to reflect on because I've felt a lot of camaraderie with senior male leaders. And I also hadn't realized how much people have helped me out consciously, but there definitely have been influential women. There was the woman who gave me a work home and who helped me realize that it was okay to be vulnerable at work, but also how to move on from that. There was the woman who let me speak at an event when she couldn't. And the woman who stood there and said, you've got something, you're going places. There was the woman who mentored me when I was struggling. There was the woman who said that she loved my book and couldn't wait to read it, the next one. All of these women have made a difference in my life, and I'm very grateful for it. But it's very easy to forget the good things that they say. And I think that's why it's so important to almost keep a record of the great things that we've done. And we talked about pride previously, and we talked about boasting. And I think one way of overcoming boasting is actually to make a record for yourself. You don't even have to share it with anyone else about the good things that you've achieved. I started that a good few years ago. And when I was feeling down, I would go back to the list and I'd be like, wow, look at that. And if there's nothing else that KPIs in organizations and, all of those quarterly business reviews are good for. It is an opportunity to go back and look, wow, look at all of these things that I accomplished in the last 3 months. Often small businesses and entrepreneurs don't do that. And I think it's really important to. I have a friend, a mutual mentor who I schedule quarterly reviews with. Then every quarter, we both go away and do our assessments and come back to each other and hold ourselves accountable and go, right, what did you learn? What went right? What went wrong this last quarter? What are you going to do differently next quarter?
Wow. That is very, very good. I need to get a friend like that. I'm going to get that. You've given me lots of things to do. Wow.
Sorry.
Wow, that's very, very good. Very good. So in your opinion, what hinders women from getting to the top? I know we want to tap into your knowledge. Sorry, Gina. It's just that there's just so much coming from you and we're utilizing the opportunity.
Keep going. I don't mind. I can be here all night. You were saying what hinders women
from getting to the top and achieving those dreams, and what is required to get them there?
Well, if we had 60% of the government made up of women, I think that would change it a lot. But, maybe we'll get there one day. I suspect not. Not in my lifetime anyway. What hinders women from getting to the top is a combination of various factors. One is that women don't perceive that it's not that they don't perceive they have the right to be on top, but it's that they don't demand to be on top.
Oh, yeah.
One of the other elements is that women have been taught for decades, if not hundreds of years, or if not thousands of years, that their role and responsibility is to be a caregiver, not a decision maker.
Mm-hmm.
And often, and I see this in men too, actually, those who focus on wanting to care for and nurture and help other people perceive that money is somehow bad or wrong. And I think that prevents a lot of women from wanting to get to the top. If we think that we can't be on the top because then we'll be paid and somehow being paid is a bad thing, that's like, I want to shake people. I want to shake myself because I was like that, decades ago. The fact is that money is not evil. This is another one of those crazy sayings, money is the root of all evil. It's not money is the root of all evil. If you actually go back to the source, it is the love of money is the root of all evil.
That's a good one. Yeah.
You can have money and do amazing things with it. And this is the difference. Money doesn't prevent you from living a good life. It gives you the ability to do more for other people. Money gives you power, it gives you choice, but most importantly, it gives you opportunities. And I think more women are not at the top because they feel that somehow it's not okay for them to be at the top. And let's face it, we have had decades, centuries, millennia of other people, in fact, a lot of them women, telling us that it's not okay to be on the top, and that has to change.
Definitely.
Even a decade ago, there were women in power who would deliberately prevent other women from being in power because they saw themselves as rivals, as competitors. And I think maybe the pandemic has changed the way we see other people, that maybe it's me that's changed. I no longer see women as competitors. I still have an element of, oh, I wish that was me when I see someone else having success, but it doesn't stop me from celebrating it in them. It doesn't stop me from saying, I'm so proud of you. Well done. You have achieved this success and you deserve it. And yeah, often they don't believe me when I say that, but I believe it for them. And I think what would change to put women on the top is more women demanding that women are on the top.
Yes.
And more women holding each other accountable. It's almost like we need a KPI, a key performance indicator in our lives as women to say, have you done anything brave today? Yes or no? Have you told that stupid person in your head that's telling you you're wrong and ugly and bad and horrible to shut up today? Yes, tick. Have you told the person who says you're not allowed to make any money to shut up? Yes, tick. And when we can do all of these things, then we will start believing that we are entitled to those top positions, because you know what? Why not? Why not? The worst thing we can possibly do is limit ourselves before anyone else does it.
Exactly. That was another good one. So I'm going to start with the 3 that you've given, and I'm going to go out to make at least 10 KPIs and distribute them. So I need to investigate the others so that we can make up a list of 10 KPIs per day. Was it per
I
day
love
or
it.
per week?
Have you told yourself you're beautiful today? There's another KPI. Have you looked at your body and celebrated your body for the things that it can do rather than the things that it can't? Have you said, thank you, hands. Look at this hand. It can write, it can cook, it can nurture. This is a good hand, rather than going, oh, look at my face, it's so red.
I look at my eyes, I'm so tired,
Exactly.
I can't go on the camera. Yes. Oh, fantastic. I need that. That is actually required. And do you think it should be a daily thing? Daily, every day? Checklist of your KPIs or weekly? What should it be?
It's an interesting question. It's hard to recognize and acknowledge these things in yourself. Often the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. But there are some days when it's too hard to look at yourself in the mirror and go, I'm beautiful. But it might be easy to look at yourself in the mirror and go, thank you, hands. Thank you, nose. Thank you, ears. Mm-hmm. So maybe the KPI isn't to believe every day that you're beautiful, but to every day be grateful for your body and what it does.
Yes. Every day. If you're alive to actually have a body, to actually know that you are still existing, just be grateful. Yes. Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you. So where do we see Gina in the next 5 to 10 years with all this energy, with all these vibrations? I don't know. Where do we see you the next 5 to 10 years?
I see Gina giving back to other people from a position of authority and strength. I see Gina being comfortable and settled in a home that is a place that makes her soul come alive. And I see Gina being an inspiration to more and more people. I also see her with a great big enormous pair of diamond studs in her ears.
Fantastic. That's very good. Thank you. So how do you manage to create work-life balance? I think this is something women always wait for.
So here's a deeply personal story. I actually have Hashimoto's hypothyroidism, which is an autoimmune condition. It was diagnosed not too long ago. And it means that those days when I get super exhausted and I just need to go to bed and sleep for 18 hours at a time are actually not my fault. They're the fact that my body is fighting me. My immune system is actually eating me. And I have to have a work-life balance, because I know that when I get to the point at the end of a day or a week or a month, I will work and work and work until I'm exhausted. And then it'll take me another month to recover. So I have to force myself to have a work-life balance by telling clients that I can only achieve so much, by setting realistic deadlines, by making sure that I actually get up and get out of my desk, by putting time in my diary to rest, by not saying yes to everything. Am I an expert at it? No. Are there days that I get to the end of the day and I'm exhausted and my throat is sore and I know that I should have actually taken time away from my desk? Yes, of course, because I pushed myself too hard. But I find that I'm aware of the things that give me joy and happiness and rest and comfort. And that knowledge is part of the step to recovery. I also know that if I need to get a lot of energy, I can identify those things that make me happy and cram them all in and buoy up my energy in a much shorter period of time, because I've given a lot of thought to what it is that gives me a work-life balance. But mostly I am incredibly privileged to be able to have a lot of choice over how and when I work. And that gives me, well, as much work-life balance as I let myself have. And I learned the lesson of working extremely long hours and burnt out in 3 months. Some people, it'll take years and years to get to burnout. For me, it was 3 months. And that was enough for me to start identifying the warning signs now and realize that saying no is okay. And it's important not only for me to say no with respect and say, I'm sorry, I can't do that, or I can't meet that deadline, or you know what, just no. It is also critical for my physical health.
That's amazing. But also in terms of how you've taken us to understanding the importance of a life. But sorry to hear about the autoimmune disease, but I don't know whether is it just going to be always you working through that process of maintaining your balance, or will it finally get away? I don't know really. So sorry.
Unfortunately, the tendency of autoimmune diseases is to get progressively worse over time. What is terrifying is that there is a much higher prevalence of autoimmune diseases in all populations all over the world now than there ever was before. And there are various theories about it. One is that we've eliminated the normal causes of ill health. And so now our bodies are actually not trying to fight off normal diseases, colds and flus and viruses and all of this kind of stuff. They actually get confused and they start trying to attack normal, healthy cells. It's crazy. There are far more women who have autoimmune diseases than men. They haven't figured out exactly why. But it is something that I think with a growing awareness of these, there will become also a growing awareness of what's causing them. And I think a lot of that has to do with our lifestyles, with the pressure that we put on ourselves, with the expectations that we have of ourselves. And I hope that there will be more compassion and understanding for people who have these conditions, and that more people recognize that actually you can push and push and push and push, but eventually something's got to give.
Yes. So you have to know your body. You have to know your body, and listen to it. Listen to it. Definitely know when you have to stop. But like you said, you're privileged to actually be the founder, the director, the person who says no, the person who says yes, and that means you can pull out when you need to and bring back yourself to balance. Yeah. Oh, blessing. So I hope you're able to keep in balance for this. So how do you we want to learn from you key lessons that you would share with your 15-year-old self if you went back in time. I remember you talked about checking Gina at some point and telling
I wish I could teach my 15-year-old self that everything will be okay. That all of the insecurities you have at that time, you don't need to worry about, because it's all going to work out. I wish I could tell her that she will be surrounded by love and friends, and that she will be successful, and that she will be a leader, the leader that she always wanted to be, that the 15-year-old Gina who spent her whole high school career with her nose in a book sitting in a corner somewhere. Actually, that it's okay to be an introvert. And that's why you sit with a nose in a book all the time, because you find having conversations with other people can be tiring.
Yes.
But mostly, I wish I could tell her that it is so important to fail. And that actually she must do more things that she does badly. And that she must take more risks and get into trouble more, because it's only by learning, by doing things wrong, that you become bigger and braver and stronger and better. If you just sit around playing it safe your whole life, you will never be the person you were meant to be.
Goodness. Definitely, that would transform anyone. And I've thought about it myself, what I need to tell my daughter, but also what you're telling here, you're actually telling me right now. Just dare yourself, do more things. Yes, go out so that you can become more, discover yourself. And yes, wow, be the leader that you always wanted to be. Yes. Wow, wow. But you were very kind to her as well. So that's very good. You gave us a challenge already for Stellar Women subscribers. I don't know if there's any other challenge, but we want to focus on striving for excellence. So what challenge would you like to leave our subscribers, our listeners?
Pick something that you define as excellence that is only just outside your reach. Pick something that you know is achievable, but that requires you to be step just outside of your comfort zone to achieve. There's no point in choosing to define something as excellence that you cannot see a way to get to.
Yes.
If you set your goals too high, it often becomes really hard to get to that goal. It doesn't mean you shouldn't have a big, hairy ass goal in the future. It just means that how you define excellence should be something that is realistically achievable. In businesses, they talk about SMART goals: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. Have SMART goals for your life. Make your excellence ambition a SMART goal. Realistic, achievable. If you only ever define excellence as something unachievable, you will never be able to reach it. And don't forget, there is a difference between excellence and perfection. Excellence is possible. Perfection is not.
Very good. Thank you very much, Gina. Thank you. And therefore, we are taking on that challenge. We're going to close up now. Thank you so much for having us. For creating this time and sharing from your heart, expanding our horizons. I'm sure. No, I have been transformed. We've had classes here. We've had a marketing class. We had a coaching. We've just had everything. This is all that you need actually for the whole year. I have so much. I have to do my KPIs. I have to do the SMART for the striving for excellence. I have to do a challenge every single day. I have to get an accountability partner. My goodness, there's just so much I have to do. So I'm really grateful for your time, Gina. And for all of you who are listening to us, thank you so much for being with us. It has been me, Stella Olivia Kikoyo, the editor-in-chief of the Stellar Woman magazine and the host of the Stellar Woman show, and Gina Balarin, who has been with us for this length of time. Until next time, thank you very much for being with us. And you can find out more about Gina. Gina, can you tell us where we can find out, apart from LinkedIn? Is there anywhere else we could find out about you?
Well, you can check out The Secret Army on Amazon. It's available almost all around the world. There should be a local version that you can buy.
I'll be the first one. Yeah.
But also make sure that you can visit verbalistics.com.au, verbalistics.com.au. But you don't have to. Yes, I'm on LinkedIn, but reach out, say hello. Tell me, hey, I saw you on Stella's show. Can we talk? Ask me a question. Ask me for advice. Ask me for 15 minutes of chat. That's where you'll find me, really.
Definitely. That's how I found you. So it was great to have you again, and you can check out Verbalistics, and you can go and find the Secret Army book, isn't it? Yes, on Amazon. This is how you'll be able to get hold and to know more about Gina. Thank you very much. Until next time, have a great day or great week and a great year. Bye-bye.
Bye.